Our country is still assessing the consequences of the tariff announced by Donald Trump, which will take effect starting August 1st. It's the highest import tax so far in this new wave of the so-called tariff hike. In his justification, Trump criticized the Supreme Court and mentioned an alleged persecution of President Jair Bolsonaro. Patricia, what was the reaction over there a day after this letter from President Trump? Tell us about it. Good evening to you.
Good evening, Cesar. I will. Look, Congressman, Republicans who created a committee to analyze decisions by the Brazilian Supreme Court that affect American tech companies supported President Donald Trump. Now, Democratic congressmen from the opposing party and at least one Republican Party leader I spoke with today criticized the move. Here at the State Department, which is equivalent to Brazil's Itamaraty, there was not a word today about the United States' decision to tax Brazilian products by 50%. It's through diplomatic channels, Cesar, that this negotiation effort should focus in the coming days, before this measure takes effect on August 1st. President Donald Trump spent the day here in the American capital, at the White House, with no public engagements, Cesar. So, it wasn't possible today to question President Trump about the contents of the letter sent to Brazil. This correspondence, which was sent to Brasilia, was different from other letters sent to leaders of 21 other countries, as you'll see now in our report. On social media, the President of the United States celebrated the rise in American tech company stocks. He said that the country is back and receiving hundreds of billions of dollars in tariffs. So far, leaders of 22 countries have received letters informing them of the new rates that will be charged on products imported by the United States starting August 1st. Brazil is at the top, with 50%. With the exception of Lula, all the leaders received similar letters that begin by emphasizing the commitment to trade relations. In the letter sent to the Brazilian president, Donald Trump starts off differently. Speaking in the first person, he says that he knows and has dealt with Jair Bolsonaro, that he respects him, and claims that the trial of the former president is a witch hunt and should end immediately. Bolsonaro was convicted by the Superior Electoral Court for attacks on the electoral system and is a defendant in the Supreme Court, accused of leading a plan to prevent Lula from taking office. Trump also mentioned the Supreme Federal Court and said that the 50% rate charged on Brazilian products is partly due to court orders issued to American internet companies, stating that such orders are acts of censorship and illegal. Donald Trump also ordered the United States to investigate alleged unfair trade practices carried out by Brazil against foreign technology companies. To do this, he invoked a trade and tariff law from the 1970s. This legislation allows Americans to impose tariffs and sanctions against foreign governments that engage in abusive practices against the country. This measure has already been used against China, for example, both by Trump and his predecessor Joe Biden. Shortly before sending the letter to Lula, Trump said that the formula for calculating these tariffs is common sense and how the United States has been treated over the years in terms of the numbers. That's when he talked about Brazil. He said that the country has not been good to Americans. The part of the letter where Donald Trump refers to the trade balance deficit as unfavorable to the United States is also present in the correspondence sent to other countries. In Brazil's case, however, contrary to what President Trump claims, there was a surplus last year. The United States sold more to Brazil than it imported. The Nobel Prize-winning economist, American Paul Krugman, criticized Donald Trump's decision. He stated in a text published on Wednesday night that the tariff imposed by the president is malicious and megalomaniacal. He accused Trump of using the tariff hike for political purposes and, in his words, said that the action is reason enough for impeachment. In New York, the impact was felt in Arabica coffee futures contracts, which rose by more than 3.5%. Brazil is the largest producer and the United States, the largest buyer. For investors, with the tariff hike, The product is expected to become more expensive on American store shelves.
Of course, what we all want to know is what Brazilia's reaction will be and is right now. In just a moment, we're going to talk with Murilo Fagundes. Murilo, I ask you to wait just a minute, because I have one more question for Patricia. Patricia, the countries that make up BRICS, which Brazil is part of, right, had also been threatened by Trump. How did they react to this letter to Brazil? Tell us about it.
Well, I saw a reaction from at least one of those countries, China. The Chinese government spokesperson said today, Cesar, that Beijing's position has always been very clear on this matter. They oppose the tariff proposed by Donald Trump and that the abuse of tariffs ends up harming multilateral trade. Donald Trump recently criticized once again the BRICS idea, the suggestion they made to do business in a currency other than the dollar. And Trump claims, Cesar, that this idea harms American interests and, because of that, any country that aligns with this idea will be subject to additional tariffs.